Hello, everyone. How are you? I'm Michael Gibson. I am the creator of Norm Therapy, but I'm also the CEO and founder of Norm Therapy Inc., it's a U.S. corporation. I'm traveling the world right now. I'm here in the Middle East, and I'm having our session occur from a remote location, trying to get my signal stronger here on the computer. Yeah, here it gets coming in. Good. We're going to be talking with one of my favorite people, a young lady out of Libya. Her name is Arin Farag. We're going to be talking with her a little later on, but I want to first talk to you about Norm Therapy. Norm Therapy is a revolutionary interviewing process that I created over the past 3 decades. Intermittently, of course, not straight for 30 years, but I've worked on it for quite some time, 3 decades. And um, I also have an opportunity to share with you more information about not only our therapeutic service, but also the people we've helped around the world. So about 6 years ago, I decided to go ahead and bring Norm Therapy to the public. And when I did that, it became part of my blood, so to speak. We actually gave the service away to the public for about 6 years now, where we've trained a Norm therapist through almost a year-long process, about 5 months of academic, and about 6 months of probationary period where they became Norm therapists. And during that time becoming Norm therapists, we were very fortunate in honing the program, the training process, as well as granting a great deal of experience to our Norm therapists so they can get in there and deal with abuse care victims around the world. We're on 6 continents, not 7. Antarctica, we haven't made our way through the snow and ice there yet, but I'm certain that at some point in the future, we'll be there as well. But we are absolutely forging a way forward, and people are loving what we do. Right now, we have medical doctors, psychotherapists, geneticists, business professionals from all walks of life who actually have gone through our course and became Norm therapists. And keep in mind, we did all of this for free, absolutely no cost to the public. The sessions that we conducted online and in private, on private platforms, we use Zoom normally. And also the training, we provided it free of charge to the public, and it has been a joy to watch people grow and heal, as well as become expert in our abuse care community. So it's without going too much in that, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in this interview. But Arin Farag is an amazing young lady. She's dealt with everything from domestic violence in a professional capacity where she's volunteered in these particular organizations, to understanding, people who have been abused and working with them in her communities. We're going to talk with her right now. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring her to the stage and have a good conversation. Hey, Arin, how are you again? Can you hear me
I'm
okay?
good. Yeah, how are you? It lags a bit, but the audio is perfect. It's just the video that lags a bit, but everything's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your video looks great from this end. It really
Okay,
does.
perfect.
So long as we're projecting that out to the world. So you're in New York right now.
Yes.
How's the weather? Is it hot, hot, hot?
It's really hot. It's really hot. And New York when it's hot,
Oh,
it's really hot. The humidity is like mm,
well, I spent a lot of time in New York over the years, and Chicago gets the same way. Oh my God, the in the wintertime we have the hawk, in the summertime you have the eagle or something. It's hot.
it's
It's hot.
hot.
So it's muggy there. Are people experiencing higher levels of stress during the heat? Have you noticed?
Not really. I feel like people are being really nice. I went out yesterday and I had a really good day actually. Everyone is being really
Really? Tell us about your good day in New York. What did you do yesterday?
Oh, my cousin is traveling, so I went out with her and we got some last minute things. We went to Union Square area and went through stores and a bit of shopping, and
Wow.
it was
Okay, so what'd you buy? What did you buy? Anything good?
oh, just accessories.
I understand. Okay, so you're originally from where?
From Libya.
From Libya. Okay, what part of Libya?
I live in the city because usually all of us do. We're like a little population. We're like 7 million or 8 million.
Okay.
We usually all live in the city. it's barely you find people that fully live out in the suburbs.
Mhm.
But I'm originally from a town that's like about 40 minutes away from the city. It's the nearest like mountain earthy area to the city, and that's where I'm originally from.
Okay. So how now tell me something. How is it that you're so young and you've been involved in so much as it relates to abuse? Uh, Tell us about your
Because I
abuse
grew up in
care
a
experience.
third world country that was undergoing war, and you're just put in a situation where you have to come aware to your senses like at such an early age. I feel like that did take a toll on me. It was a sort of like political abuse or like a abuse of war, or I don't know what we would call that, but
Hmm.
it's when you're at the age of 12 and you're at school and someone throws a bomb into your school, you're not a child anymore. Like that's it. Like
Very traumatic. Very
you know
traumatic.
what a bomb is now, and you're like thinking about death when you're 12 and thinking, oh, like this is it.
Highly unusual. Highly unusual for a
Yeah,
12-year-old to have to worry
for
about
a
dying every
12-year
day.
old to have to worry about a bomb.
So you had to grow up quicker. In other words, you much
Yeah,
faster.
yeah. That the Civil War was actually it, like probably the most like worst time, probably like maybe for any Libyan that stayed there, because it was like also like other countries were into it, so we were getting bombed like from the sky, and it was like, who are you with? Are you with the president that everyone says like sucks, or are you with other people like foreign countries where it's like, all right, do you not love your country? Where it was like that. And also having a father that worked in the government did not make that easier because he was sort of a target.
Hmm.
So we did flee like about 3 months in, and we went to Tunisia and stayed there for like 8 months until it was over. But everyone says there's one traumatic day where there were 50 rockets that fell from the sky, and if you were there that day, that means like you missed nothing. Like you had this in that day, we were still there when that happened, and it
Hmm.
was all just a traumatic experience. I mean, when you're a child and going on your rooftop and seeing things flying around and people are telling you, oh, they're gonna bomb this area next. And also something that was really different about like maybe what we have in like Africa or North Africa or just Arab countries, where all the military bases are in the city. It's not out. Like the military base of one of Gaddafi's sons was only like 2 streets away from my house. So
It was
when that
constantly
got
being
bombed,
bombarded.
yeah, and it was just bombardment like left and right, and it was to flee. There was no airport. You had to go by car. You sat on like the borders for at least 12 to 14 hours, which is, thank God, we like either way you were gonna get in. Whereas some like nowadays, as we see like things happening in the world, people aren't like, you're not even allowed to go, and people are just waiting on borders in all these different countries where like there's civil wars happening and there's other wars happening. um
Hmm.
Thank God, either way you were going to get in our situation, but it was just a long wait of like starting from 7 to 14 hours. um but yeah, it was a really hard time, and it is something I think that made me like sort of appreciate and love my country more. I didn't hate it. If anything, I just loved it more. I just like, I wanted it to be better. I wanted it to get better. I wanted, like, until now I haven't gone home for the past like 6 years because my dad said it's not safe and he doesn't want to send me or my sisters, like his daughters, back home without him present. Something in Arab culture, I don't know if you understand, but he
I
just
do.
doesn't feel comfortable us going back home without him present, and I wouldn't go home without him present with me either way. um but yeah, I haven't gone home in 6 years and I just miss it so much. It's, I don't know, with everything that
Yeah,
I endured there, I still miss it.
I'm sure you do. PTSD, in your case, I would say would be a realistic outcome for a person over the course of your young life. 12 years old, being bombarded, seeing death everywhere, trying to live in the country you love, but also flee from it at the same time. It has to have been, or it had to have been quite traumatic on you. How have you dealt with that kind of shock, that kind of syndrome over these years?
I didn't know what PTSD was, or it's something about like where I came from. Mental health isn't a thing. You're crazy if you feel anything mental. Like you have to be completely normal. You didn't have like depression wasn't a thing. If you said you're depressed, anyone would look at you and be like, "Stop acting crazy." That's the thing they would say. You're crazy. Stop acting crazy. So nothing was really like open to me or like that I understood until I moved here for high school and
In New York.
New York City.
Mhm.
Living in New York City, I moved here for my last year, which I was a senior when I moved here. Living in New York City, construction, as you know, is everywhere. And the first time where I experienced like PTSD sort of shock was I was sleeping and then there was construction at like 6 or 7 a.m. And I got up like sitting. I was like, what's happening? Like they're here. They're coming. Like it's happening again. I pictured like 13-year-old self me running to the basement in that second. I was like, what is this? Why am I this scared? Or if I'm walking down the street and I would hear like a sudden, it's New York, you hear all sorts of things. If I hear like an ambulance or if I hear something like so loud, it just brought it back. It always brought it back.
In context, it brought it back in a contextualization that you understood that you could superimpose over anything that was occurring to you. And that's what it's all about. I brought that up for a specific reason. PTSD, I brought it up for a very specific reason because nowadays, the kid on the playground who went to kick the ball and missed, parents are now saying that child suffers PTSD because they're having a traumatic experience. That's not true. I think we have bastardized the term PTSD, and we should put it back into perspective. Back when I was in the military, the first thing I learned about it was from television. And this was back in the 70s, the 1970s. I learned about on television that it was called shell shocked.
That's when it
And you're
first
like,
came out. It was after the World War, and they
well,
started calling it shell shock because only soldiers could experience PTSD, and that's how they knew it was.
exactly. And it was called shell shocked, and then they came out, they post this or that or that, and then all of a sudden became post traumatic stress syndrome, and then who knows what it's called today and what the acronym stands
Post
for.
traumatic stress disorder, yeah.
It truly is. And they've come up with so many different versions of it to accommodate the public.
Yeah.
I do believe that that's wrong to do. I think it's a very incorrect
100%.
way of diagnosing because you're kind of without context telling everybody that they are PTSD sufferers. And they may not be, and they may be
And it's
treated for
invalidating
that.
other people that don't really understand what it is, and they're like not even comfortable saying what it is or not even comfortable speaking about what experience they had. And it's like you're saying your kid didn't kick a ball, so now he has PTSD. What do I say if someone was abused or someone was like raped or something? It's like you can't even like it's not even on the same level. It's not like or
That's a
somebody
great
that
perspective.
suffered like a car accident or airplane crash or it's like
Exactly. We diminish its environment to the point where anybody could be accommodated within that environment. And when they're accommodated in an environment where they don't belong, they're receiving services that may do them more harm than good. Because let's look at what PTSD is. It's your constant, as you were as a kid, using your childhood as an example, living in Libya and being from there and being constantly bombarded with rockets and mortar fire and small arms fire all around you with a military base. One of Gaddafi's military bases, a couple of blocks from your home, and your father being with the government, some kind of a dignitary. So you were always a target. Now, living under that constant threat of annihilation had to have something so traumatic on your personality that would have caused you to become the woman you are today, that you look back at abuse and you say, hey, I'm now going to, extrapolate my existence from where I was to where I am and extrapolate it forward. And you can do that now because you've dealt with your PTSD in a way that that has caused you to be more balanced and calm about your response to it. That is the problem. How you respond to things in life is normally how your problems are quelled or exacerbated or made worse. It's either, okay, let me use the right words, ameliorated or exacerbated, been made better or made worse. They'll be by how you respond to your stimuli. Some, like you said, and I want you to really clearly explain to us what was happening to you in the moment. You said that you would wake up when you moved to New York and you were finally there, and then all of a sudden, all this loud construction all over the place, just painting a picture for everyone. What happened? You sat up in your bed, you had a night terror, you had to sweat, you were shaking, you were uh, fear. You had this certain kind of overwhelming fear that caused
It's
you
it's
to what?
also what I like have noticed. It's also our bodies. There's a certain ring that my ear rings as soon as if I hear a gunshot, or if I hear a bomb, or if it's a certain ring, I know what it is.
The
I
tympanic
experience it in my
membrane in
body.
your ear.
Like my ear rings. I know that
Mhm.
ring. And when I moved here and I was hearing that construction, my ear would ring that same ring. My body
Mhm.
itself isn't aware that we're not in danger. And it's
Because that
something
tympanic
very
membrane. Go ahead.
I
No,
don't
no,
want to
you
be
keep
like
going. I love.
I like America. I enjoy America, but seeing like online all these like things that are happening, like the gun control and stuff like that and all of that, I constantly feel unsafe in America. Just knowing that in the back of my head, it's always there. That's it. I
A very
cannot go to a
legitimate cause
movie
to feel that
theater.
way, Aaron.
I do not enjoy going to a mall. I stay away from these things, and I don't know, maybe it's a way that I deal with it. I do
Mhm.
not like those settings anywhere where I know like that these shootings happen. I want to be away from that as like far as possible. I like it's just, and it was something where I actually like when I went here to high school and it was all these school shootings, I felt so unsafe like here in New York more than
Very
I
indicative of
ever
what you
felt
went
even
through.
back home. I don't know why. It was something about it where here I felt more unsafe than I did back home. And I don't know, maybe
I'll tell
because
you. I'll tell you why. And then here's the difference. One, back home, it was arbitrary. You were being bombed all the time. It was an arbitrary thing that every day something else would go wrong. There would be a bombing somewhere, and
Mhm.
it was targeted in different areas, or sometimes carpet bombed throughout the entire area. So you always had that to contend with, but it was arbitrary. It wasn't personal. In the
Yeah.
U.S., it's personal. It's quite people legitimately dress themselves up, put on all their garb, grab their weapons, add as many magazines as they can, and all an active shooter is a roving ambush. That's all it is. A human being that's roving around looking for targets.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, already have surveilled where they're going to shoot and who
Yeah.
they're going to shoot. They will have gone to the mall 15 times, looked at that area. They'll know where the points of ingress and egress are. They will know where people most at what time there's most heavily trafficked. They'll know
The thing
everything
is,
about
you'll
that area.
never
So if
know.
somebody
You'll never know who it is. You'll never know who it is. Like even at school,
exactly.
I try to be nice to everyone just because I'm just like I don't want to push any buttons. I don't want to like I'm just staying away from anything as far as possible. I was like I'm I was so scared. And until today I am scared. Like I do not go to a movie theater once without thinking for like at least 3-4 hours before about a shooting that would happen in a movie theater. Like it's just my worst fear.
Well, and just in that understanding, I want to just be clear on something. Um, that's everywhere in the United States now. It used to be at certain places or schools. It started off back in the really in the 70s with the postman. People used to say the term, that guy went postal and he killed everybody at the post office. It started off like that, becoming a norm in America that if somebody went postal, that they were going into work or to their home to kill everybody and then kill themselves. And then it metamorphosized into many other forms of self-destruction along with other suicide, murder suicide pacts. I was on the phone with a gentleman back in the late, I mean, sorry, early 90s. And being on the phone with him, Aaron, he said, hey, yeah, let's finish this transaction. Let's do this. Let's do that. Great. All right. I was on with my attorney, Dan. He's also the attorney for our foundation as well. But Dan and I were talking with this guy and having a great time. And then we hung up. There was no FaceTime, no Zoom, none of that in those days. And the very next thing we hear, Dan calls me and he says, Michael, you'll never guess. The guy we were just on the phone with, he finished the call, went home, shot his wife, shot his mother-in-law, shot a few neighbors, and then killed himself. Did the deal go really that bad?
You'll never
You
know.
never know.
You'll never know. You'll never know. And it's so sad that these people, it's not to feel any like remorse or anything, like just because they did bad things, I'm pretty sure like not all of them deep down are bad people. I just think they're just people that have not been heard. They're people that have not been understood. Like, it's just very horrible that somebody needs to do that to release this sort of anger, or this sort of like built up like anger on society or on their school or on, because in my personal, I enjoy things. For someone like, my school was the highlight of my life. Like, I promise that if my country's better, I will take my children to the school. Like, I made the best of friends, and it's like,
free education was there, wasn't it? Free every
yeah, we do. Yeah, there is public education. Most people do go to public schools, but because when I moved back, I was in the 4th grade. I did not know a word of Arabic. I would not have survived in any public school there at all. And I did attend a international school since like 4th grade, and also why some parts I did not feel safe with, because Gaddafi's grandchildren were actually in my school as well. They were under me by a grade. So that was also within it.
They were also being targeted.
Like, we're surrounded by guns 24/7. Like, that's it. As soon as the Civil War started, it's like, yeah, everywhere.
Tell us more about domestic violence and your experience in dealing with domestic violence, and how you've helped people and been a part of that community. Can you talk about that for us?
Yeah, it was actually a friend of my sister's that started an organization called Noor Organization, and it was a organization against child abuse. And that was when I was sort of immune to like the fact of parents like hitting children. I even in psychology, discipline is correct where you hit a child. Nothing goes against that, but there was just a line that was crossed of you disciplining your child, where it's like, discipline, you're supposed to teach them, you're supposed to guide your children, they're supposed to still have respect, still have like all their dignity as well. They just understand the consequences of their actions, but they turn it into a way where they want to like, I control you, I want to inflict pain on you, I want to see you frustrated. And that's abuse. You're abusing someone if you're doing that. True. That's just abuse. And so that was where I saw certain things, and I was like, this isn't discipline anymore. This is abuse. Where parents would say, oh, I'm disciplining my child. And there's a certain line that should not be crossed when trying to discipline your child. There are so many ways, so many routes to take before you hit your child. And when I say in psychology it's allowed, I'm talking about a little smack on like the diaper, a little like, no, don't do that, like a little like on the hand, just a bit.
A love tap.
Like just a little tap, just like it's a consequence, or like just that I'm okay with it. You do you, like however you want to. But there were certain things where these parents are getting creative, like hangers, belts, like poles, like, and it's like to a point where this child's injured. You're not disciplining, you're hurting this child. And these children grow up to what? It's a cycle.
Yeah.
It's a cycle.
Yes, it's very cyclical, very much so.
It's a cycle of abuse. And these children, and like that, what I think is a huge part of the lack of development, I think, or where like as they grew up, they weren't allowed to express themselves. They were being beaten. There's a sort of like a boundary not crossed with parents and children there that I noticed, where it's like I respect my parents as well, but it's like to a point where there is no relationship between the parent all you owe them
And
is respect. Like, it's
of course,
nothing else there. There's
yes,
nothing else there.
that does happen. That is the consequence.
Yeah, nothing else there. There is
It's
no
called
love.
perfunctory behavior.
There's nothing else there. It's just, especially with the fathers, it's like, my father is the person that I respect. I do not speak to him too much. I do not like have a long conversation with him. I should not, God forbid, do anything wrong in front of my father or let him know anything about my life as well. Where it's just like, yeah,
More cultural
it's more
understanding of that
cultural, and
relationship.
it's completely wrong because all these parents and all these children grow up like not emotionally developed, and it's like so many things where like people like me, or like people that are more like aware of like this development, or have healthy parents, or that like grew up with a relationship with parents, where it's like when you look at it and you just see like how much it affects these children growing up, where
It,
it's like they're not talking about their feelings, they're not supposed to show anything out. They also use hitting as a way to like express themselves, like these children.
exactly.
That's how
Corporal
they,
punishment.
if somebody pisses them off, they're hitting them. If somebody doesn't do as they say, they're hitting them. It's a cycle where this child, why at 16 does this child think that hitting someone when they don't do as they
Is
say is
normal.
correctly?
They believe it's normalized behavior.
It's
And they
normalized
then,
behavior.
exactly. But there's the thing you just mentioned. I want to go back to it for 1 second. That's called perfunctory engagement. I actually wrote a paper on it. It's out there on the internet. If you look it up, it's called perfunctory engagement. I think you can find it on Medium and a few other places. But perfunctory engagement basically is saying that we have these types of non-emotional and non-connect or without connection kind of relationships with people where we just perfunctorily go through life dealing with them and never really exact any good out of that kind of behavior. And that's very dangerous for that child to develop in that environment. All they
The lack of
see is
relationship
you
with
doing
parents is like, it's the stem of every
it's
single
center of your
issue
universe.
growing up. It's the stem of every
Exactly.
single issue growing up.
It's the center of a child's universe. And
Yeah.
yours, one of the reasons I love talking to you is because you're very well rounded. You have this very mature sense as a young woman, but at the same time, you got an old soul and you understand that which you've been involved. A
Yeah.
lot of people can't really step outside of themselves
Hmm.
and say, this is my circumstance. How do I pragmatically, commonsensically, and contextually deal with it?
Hmm.
Most people take a very superficial look at themselves because it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to look at yourself and be critical.
Yeah.
Let alone allow somebody else to look at you and allow them to be critical to you. So critical thinking plays a heavy role in recognizing abuse. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Good. I'm glad. And also when thinking critical, what do you think are some of the most important things to do when you're talking about how shall I say, when you're talking about abuse? What are some of the critical points that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at someone who's undergoing, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's political abuse, religious abuse, that happens, narcissistic abuse. They have children who are abused in certain circumstances where there's child abuse or child sexual exploitation. Please, what are some of the critical markers, or we call them
I think
identifiable victim
critically,
markers?
when looking at somebody in that situation, I feel like, or like at least as a therapist or as a counselor that's trying to help this person, it's really, really crucial and important to understand how, like, why they endured that and how the situation went into place, because sometimes people talk about abuse for like 10 years and 12 years where you're just like, I don't know, like, how did someone endure that for that long? It's very important to look into the history, the prior, the post, and how this cycle went into being, because there are certain factors of abuse, that it's comfort. Abuse is comfort for many people. Abuse is their place. They don't
They're
feel,
conditioned to be
they're
there.
conditioned to it. They don't feel safe outside of it, where it's the complete opposite, where it's like you're not safe in the situation, you're safer outside of it. But to them, leaving that situation or talking about that situation is like sort of, you're sort of selling out your abuser. You're sort of putting them out there. You're sort of,
Betraying them. You're
and you're
betraying them.
also showing you're also like showing your trauma and what you've endured, and being honest about that and reaching that point, I think, is really hard. So it's really, really important to understand the circumstances of the whole situation.
Well, the whole situation normally has not only to do with the cultural effects of abuse, but also the physical, mental, social, and financial aspects of abuse as
Yeah.
well. Where you see one abuse, you'll always see another,
Yeah,
and
you will.
another, and another. We talked last time we were together about people pleasers. Tell
Yeah.
me, what are your observations about people pleasers?
Generally, I think people pleasers, like, I feel like there are people that enjoy being nice, that enjoy other people having a good time, but when there's sometimes it gets to a point where there's something going on between you and yourself. Like there is something you're not talking about. There is something, it's a facade.
Very
There's
fake.
something that goes on when you're at home and there's closed doors. It's not always very happy and bubbly and as you see it. So, and they always say like the happiest people are the most that are suffering, and I think that does go for people pleasers actually. Because you never see them in any, how come you never see a people pleaser upset? Like what, like it, it's something about that. It's something about that where it's, there's something behind closed doors.
Well, you're absolutely correct. The difference between a people pleaser and a person who pleases people is very stark. You can actually tell if you know what to look
Yeah.
for. At Norm Therapy, we teach people how to differentiate between the two. There are people out there who actually like pleasing you and taking care of you and making sure
Yeah.
you're okay. And it's a healthy environment in which they provide
Yeah.
this particular type of relationship. However, there are people to the point of their own detriment and pain and agony that pleases people to the point they hurt themselves and hurt
Yeah.
others around them,
Yeah.
and sacrifice people that they care about to those that are actually exacting their pleasing from them. And
And
you'll
I,
normally notice
yeah.
the difference. Go ahead.
And I use the word facade, it's because I feel like people pleasers, usually there is something about them. If they weren't so bubbly and so happy, you would sort of notice it. You would know what's wrong. You would be able to tell what's going on. And if they like focused on them, because if when you're with a people pleaser, you're like the center of attention. You are, it's all about you. It's not about them. And it's like if you redirect that attention towards that person, you might see things that like you've probably never seen. Or if you spent enough time with that person to like actually know them when they're not trying to please people, you might get like a little glimpse of why they're
That
so
that
bubbly.
universe.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you'll,
The pain that causes that is
yeah,
normally due to abandonment issues,
yeah,
daddy issues, oftentimes, and never being good enough. Their
yeah,
own self denial and their own inferiority complex that keeps them thinking low of themselves and having low self esteem. And they're afraid to lose a relationship, even if it isn't a valuable relationship. And
yeah,
normally, people pleasers please people who do not value them. You can always tell if a person is a people pleaser because they'll be trying to please people collectively or individually, and you'll see that there's a certain level of disdain or disrespect or
yeah.
without appreciation that that effort for people pleasing actually carries
And
with it.
they easily blame themselves if anything goes wrong.
Hey, you got
Easily,
it, Aaron. You got
easily, easily.
absolutely.
It's my
Uh,
fault. It's easily their fault. Easily their fault. In every single situation, they will not, to save their life, say like that person is wrong and that they're right. Like,
have you read my paper, The Gibson Effect?
no, I have not.
Come on, you got to read the rest of my papers when you get time. I
Okay.
know you've been very busy because you're moving around and doing a lot of
Yeah.
stuff from what Kelly was telling me. But I wrote a paper called The Gibson Effect. I had to name something after me, but it's something I've been observing all over the world.
Hmm.
And it's very comprehensive, the paper, but it depicts two friends. Girls always say, and I say that because I was a little boy and I used to love watching little girls interact. I thought I knew what I was talking about then. I didn't. And I thought I know what I'm talking about now when it comes to women. I still don't. I'm learning every day. But I'll say this to you. You'll say, that's my best friend. I know everything about her. And we're the best buddies. We go places that we do things together. We shop together. We all those kinds of things. And that dynamic,
Yeah.
the Gibson effect, I call it, is when you love somebody or care for someone or are so symbiotic with that person that you lose perspective of who they truly are, because you start
Yeah.
to, as you say, create those facades and even those very fake and temporary personalities in order to relate to that person. They may at home, and you may have seen them at home kill a cat or beat a dog half senseless or spit on their brothers and sisters, but they're your best friend.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you are okay with that negative and that destructive behavior because they're your best friend.
Yeah.
And you guys grow up and they do things that are a little bit more atrocious and a little bit more
Yeah.
dastardly and crazy, but they're your best friends. So
Yeah.
you start to forgive. And then because you're around them and that's normalized behavior, you start to identify with them. And maybe you'll kick a cat. Maybe you won't burn that cat like they did, but you'll kick a cat or kick a dog or slap a child and
Yeah.
think that that's normalized behavior, and never step back out of yourself and look at the Gibson effect, that we overlook the maladies in one another so well that
Yeah.
we think that they're okay, that they're good people, that they're
Yeah.
fine and they're good for us. When one of you may be a malignant narcissist and the other one may be the victim the entire relationship and not
Yeah.
know it. And that's how you normalize bringing people into your fold and treating them terribly and being collective in your effort to hurt
Yeah.
them. So if you get a
Being,
chance to read it,
yeah.
read it. It's very comprehensive, but go ahead, please.
Yeah. Being completely like content with like your emotions and your self concept and your like self characteristics, it is really hard. That's why many people like sway around. They like,
Yes.
I don't know, in Arabic we have a saying, they go with every wave. And so it's like really hard for someone to be in that sea of those and like stand their ground and what they
Go with the
believe
flow. They go with the
in, and
flow.
they go with the flow everywhere. And speaking, that's so funny what you just said. You saw a person, seeing a person at home. Like I said last episode, my best friend, um, she's always very bubbly, and I visited her recently in London. And when she was at home, I just noticed how angry she was. She's very angry at home. She's so angry where I also like had a talk with her one night and I was like, listen, you're very angry at home. Like, what is it? And she's like, I'm being bubbly all day, every single time. Why is it so bad if I'm like pissed for a few hours? I'm like, no, it's okay. It's just new to me, but you're fine. Like, you're okay. She's like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm not pissed at you. I'm just like, this is me at home. And she's a very pissed and upset person at home. Like, she would yell at her brother for keeping dishes. And to me, it was like, there's no way that yelling and screaming is coming out of her. Like, to me, it was the biggest shock. And I've known her for like, what, 11 years, 12 years? It was the biggest shock. I was like, there's no way this is the same person. It didn't change anything. Like, I love her more. And if
Of
anything, like
course
I
not.
told her we need to work on your anger because it's a bit too much. And she's like, yeah, I know. I'm trying to. I'm trying to be a more calm person. And so I
She
did speak
smothers
to her
it.
about it.
She smothers her inner anger and self with the people pleasing, with
Yeah.
the trying to always have this positive outlook on everything when she's actually
I told
dying
her
inside.
not to. I personally, I don't know if I did a bad thing, but I told her, like, I think you should be less bubbly so that when you're upset about something, people don't really think that. Because usually, if she like has a straight face, people think, oh, she's pissed at me because she's so bubbly. Even if she had like a resting face of her just resting, they automatically think she's pissed because she's just always so bubbly. So I told her, I think you should like maybe try to notch down a bit on the bubbly, like still be nice, but just try to put yourself first in some situation in front of people so they don't take advantage of you anymore and they don't really um think that you're always pissed at them, or that you're like, let people understand you a bit more. But to her, her worst fear is letting anyone in. Her worst, like, she has us like her best friends. Anyone else, she does not like to let anyone in at all.
Well, there's a technique we use at norm therapy, and we have several techniques for people pleasers. Uh, but the first thing a people pleaser need to know is the truth.
Yeah.
They don't know that they're people pleasers often. They know that their fear of losing someone or fear of having that engagement not be the outcome that they would like for it to be.
Yeah.
They definitely don't know most of the time. But there are certain ways, if they know the truth, the raw, unmitigated truth, if they know it, then they start to get better. But they have to have a trusted soul. Like
Yeah.
it seems like your friend and you are trusted souls, where the next time you talk with her, of course, you're in the psychology field as well, but try a technique we use, and that is just ask her to use you as her barometer and say, before you do anything, write me a text or send me a text, call me, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
But let me know what you're about to do and let me give you the hard truth about it.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you? And get their acquiescence and their agreement to it. Once they mentally agree to something that's unfamiliar, they'll try to commit. But if they're already familiar with what you're saying, they will always make excuse. So
Yeah.
say it in a way that it's unfamiliar to them, and that's a good technique of getting them to start to look at themselves critically and find resolve in that circumstance. That is a very clear way of dealing with people pleasers, because the pain is something they're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
But they're so conditioned to have that pain, they can't operate without the pain.
Yeah.
So they need to see the truth. But that's a longer conversation. Of course, it would need therapy, norm therapy.
Yeah.
But come to our site and talk about that and find
Yeah.
a norm therapist, and you'll find out a little bit more. But okay, so the three things that are most difficult in the world to do, and some people do them all at the same time. Of course, changing careers, that's very difficult to do. Having a relationship, that's very difficult to do. And also moving. And I understand that you may be moving around the country
Yeah.
or around the world now, and I'm not sure if you're in a relationship, but at the same time, that would be something. And plus, you're having to deal with other trauma that you've dealt with over the years, I'm thinking. Can you tell us about that? Are you okay?
Oh no, I'm perfectly fine. I've dealt with everything. Like I said, like last episode, the hardest thing for me when entering psychology wasn't like studying or anything. It was actually like discovering like parts of myself and discovering things. So I've worked probably really hard on my issues for like the past 4 years of me studying. And I've introduced so many hobbies and so many different activities to myself that I genuinely have changed my life, and I could not imagine my life without them. One, for example, running. It has been my savior in some sort. If I don't run for at least like 3-4 days a week, then I'm having a bad week. It's just a good release with everything.
Stress
And it's
reliever.
a time for me to think about things. I have that like 4 miles to me just to like think about things and think about like what is happening, what I'm doing. And I'm a type of person that I know when something is going to stress me out. So thanks to like whatever I studied in college, I try to like break down and release my stress like slowly, where I'm not really stressed about situations anymore. It does take a lot of practice. I mean, I was the biggest stressor. I would not eat for a week if I had like an exam coming up. But like over the years it's gotten better. I mean, somebody like to actually, I feel like the biggest like therapy is such a huge part of like mental health and everything, of course. But I think there are certain like hobbies or characteristics within yourself that if you change, they might actually help you even more than sitting with your therapist. There are things that come from yourself first that which then therapy will help like to continue on like future. But I think there are certain like releases that people do need to sort of release that first batch just to just to become more aware.
Exactly. Self-awareness is probably the most important tool to develop within a abuse victim.
Yeah.
Becoming self-aware. Most victims, I need to say this again to our audience and people who are new to us, is that most people who are victimized with any kind of abuse, there's one underlying theme to abuse, and that's normally fear. There's
It's
an
fear.
element of fear
Yeah.
in every abuse.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter the abuse. There's an element of fear, and it's practiced and it's perfected by the narcissists, by the abusers, by people who look for vulnerabilities in others. Yeah. That is just how it is within the abuse care community. And one of the things we teach, believe it or not, at Norm Therapy is how to develop courage and how to exact that courage in those circumstances when you need it. And that's something that people thrive on when they come to our organization. They become more strengthened by having the courage to resolve issues themselves. And I think
and it's essential after leaving an abuse like situation. Having that courage is very essential, because I've seen in many situations, like I said, like people that come out of like abusive relationships or like abusive households, there's just a sort of fear that nobody else has except for somebody that has been abused. It's a certain type of fear where random things would trigger them, where where that fear is as if their abuser is standing right there, and you're just like, you're in a safe, and it's this constant reminder to them, like, you're in a safe place, you're in a good place, like you're doing better, you're everything. But to them, like, no matter what you say, it's between them and whatever like they have to like deal with to actually get over it and be more comfortable. And I don't know, I haven't seen anyone that has been abused that this fear 100% goes away. It's I don't know what it is. I really don't.
Fear is good, believe it or not. Fear is good. Most people misunderstand fear. Fear comes from the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobes. They all work in concert as your threat center.
Yeah.
And fear is supposed to warn you of pending danger, warn you of things that may go awry. But most people take it as, I need to fight or flight or this or that. And those are the wrong responses to fear. Fear is supposed to make you, whenever I went into combative situations in the military, I was in special forces, and I was scared to death. No kidding. Every single time jumping out of a plane, I have 1,947 jumps, both free fall and static line.
Wow.
And I was afraid every single jump. But it's the control of that fear.
Yeah.
Because it keeps you alert. It keeps you overwhelmingly ready for what happens next. But if you're conditioning, you've been taught to freeze and don't do anything. And the deer in the headlights, like the truck hitting a deer, then chances are you're going to fail in those circumstances. And I always tell people circumstances dictate the outcome of every situation. So if you understand the circumstances you're in and you can maneuver through that with that fear, then that's also, one of the things that our norm therapists teach you. See, at our organization, we have this course called MOTT, M-O-T-T, Methods of Teaching and Training. At the end of our norm therapy course, we teach MOTT. A couple of weeks of where we train our therapists to teach. And they always wonder why. Well, first we bring them back as assistants in our next cohorts and classes. But at the same time, we're not counseling people. We're actually teaching them how to operate life.
Yeah.
Not my life. I don't want, norm therapy doesn't stand for the Michael's norm everybody needs to have, but it's their individual norm that they've never had, really. You look, the girl with the black eye, the cracked tooth, the bloody nose, the broken rib, and she looks you right in the face, and what does she say? He loves me. That's why he beats me.
Yeah.
People lie to themselves.
They've been conditioned. They've been conditioned to a certain, and where does this go back to? It's there's something in her childhood as well. There's something there. There's something not only in that situation, like you said, every form of abuse is followed by another one. There's something else there.
Always. And they complement one another so well. These facades that we create, that pathological lying that we do, all of that plays a part, but we make it so inhospitable for victims of abuse to express themselves in our society because they're looked down upon because they're victims, not by the people around them, but from the people who are victimizing them as well as themselves.
Yeah.
They're actually any nation or individual without the threat of an external aggression will fail.
Yeah.
Like, the US, if it didn't have a bunch of bombs and nukes and the threat of external aggression, it would be a poor nation and wouldn't be anything. But because there's threat, there's a collective kind of effort ongoing all the time to keep it safe, to keep everything okay, and to buy more bombs and sell more bombs and whatever in order to keep that.
And that's the US on the outside, but the US on the inside, you're having homelessness, healthcare issues. Like everything is going to hell inside the country itself, but to the outside, it's like USA. Like
that's right. The American dream.
Yeah, USA. Dream. We can't exactly. That's exactly what it is.
But I always tell people when they say about the American dream, I say, yeah, in order to get the American dream, you got to be asleep. You have to be asleep to get the American dream. It's a wonderful thought, but very few people realize.
But it's a dream. It's a dream.
Yeah. They realize the whole outcome of the American dream. They and I love my country more than I'm a patriot,
100%.
But it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, and people live in pursuit of happiness instead of in happiness. They live in a pursuit of happiness.
It's a system. I mean, the American dream was just to get men working like their regular out. It's a system. It's a system. It's a system.
And it's ran by corporations.
It's ran by corporations.
That's a whole other political conversation. We'll talk about it another time. But one of the things I like about you have a very not positive outlook, although you are extremely positive. You have a very pragmatic outlook on the good that can occur next.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
I don't know. I don't know. I always look for like the best. I mean, for me, being upset or being sad or stressing over something is the worst thing to me. So I will take anything other than that. I will take anything then for me to be stressed and that was one thing that I wanted to touch up on when you were talking about what we do at norm therapy, where you said that it's not Michael's norm, it's their norm. And I feel like what it is, it's when you're so aware of things around you in certain situations, when you're aware that being happy is better than being upset, or being carefree is better than being stressed, it's a new level of awareness that you sort of unlock, where it's like you just wish that everyone had that level of awareness for themselves. Not my level of awareness, not things that I believe in, but their like moral belief, like whatever they believe in, to have that as like their awareness, like they're aware of everything, where it's like you said, like someone being beat up and saying that he loves me. If I was put into that situation, me personally, I feel like I'm more aware, but that person lacks some part of that awareness, where it's just, I just wish you had that level of, there's the certain awareness that you get to between you and yourself. And it takes a lot of self-reflection, a lot of like looking into yourself and your situations and the way you deal with situations. I personally sometimes say like life is easy if you treat it easy, and life is hard if you want it to be hard. Like we sort of sometimes put ourselves in situations where we make things really hard for ourselves, where it's not like, I was having a conversation with my sister's husband the other day, and he was saying he was driving, and then this guy, this little 16-year-old was like going donuts or something on the road, and he accidentally hit his car. And my sister's husband was with my sister and and my nephew, and he got so upset and pissed that he got down and he started like hitting. And my sister's husband is like, he's like 6'2", big, bald guy, like scary. Like I always tell him, if I saw you down the street, I would be intimidated. I would not. And he's very kind. He's really kind. I love him. He's so nice, and he like would not hurt a fly. Like actually would not hurt a fly. But he gets these like sort of anger, sort of like blackouts where he started yelling and stuff, and then he was telling me, my sister was telling me about it, and she was like, she got really pissed at him, and she was like, you shouldn't have dealt like that. And he was like, what am I supposed to do? And I told him, then I was like, you could have in that situation just said, it's fine, it happens, you're driving a car, people get into car accidents all the time, just think about the bigger picture. Don't always look at, they're attacking me, it's something not
De-escalation.
against you. Like, if it's like, if you're walking into a concert, you're going to be bumped by someone. Like, it's like when somebody is in the concert and be like, don't touch me, it's like you're most probably going to be bumped by someone or
It's gonna
get
be
close.
problematic night. It's
You
gonna be
need
a
to be very
problematic.
aware. You
Yeah.
need this level of self-awareness where you're very aware that sometimes things that may take you off or piss you off are bound to happen for them, when they happen, you know how to deal with that situation better.
We teach self-repair at norm therapy of de-escalation
Yeah.
techniques as well. Like a police officer, every situation they go into, they're social workers, police officers, and everything. Except for they're not equipped to deal with the
Yeah.
socialization of that call. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, we have a version of norm therapy. We call it norm therapy for police. So we're actively engaging and looking for contracts with different police organizations around the world now, so we
Yeah.
can extend norm therapy training to the police officers, so they can go out to these domestic violence situations or these would have normally been an out of control circumstance to handle. We can teach them how to de-escalate and provide solution oftentimes to these calls, instead of
Yeah.
let me beat you over the head, send somebody to jail, or somebody gets shot. And
Exactly. That's the end of that situation, like anywhere. That's the end of that situation. If you're calling for help, like that's the end of it. Someone's going to jail and someone might get shot. Like that's it. There's
no other choice, especially
yeah,
in New York and
yeah.
Chicago and some of the big urban
No
areas.
other choice. That's
And
funny
no
you
other.
brought that up.
We
We
got 4
have
minutes, so give me 2 minutes of the next story, then I got to close this out, and I do apologize. This is why I love
okay.
having you on the show. I really do. But go ahead, tell us what happened.
Yeah, like here we know of a family here where their child has like mental issues, and he has had mental issues for like a while. And then apparently I think he sort of has a like BPD or a sort of a schizophrenic attentive disorder or something of that sort. I'm not sure what it is exactly. But he held a knife on like his family and his sister, and his mom wasn't home. And then his sister called the police and was like, my brother is like mentally ill. He just held a knife. I left the house. He's upstairs. They shot him. They showed up and they shot him. They killed him. Like then and there, like he was shot and he
Wow,
was
I'm sorry
killed.
to hear that.
So it's
So
just
what?
where some things like could be dealt a bit better with, like being a bit more aware of like
Training.
mental issues. And sorry.
Training is everything in any organization.
Yeah.
Organization is only ever as good as their training, period. That's why people
Yeah.
are having so many problems with police officers. They have this very basic understanding that police academy is the end of the road of training, and everything you learn thereafter is OJT, or on the job
Yeah.
training. That is a terrible way to create a workforce and to implement
Especially
that
in the world we
workforce.
live in today, where mental illness is very present. It's very
It is.
present. It's
It's
very,
ubiquitous.
very present,
It's
and at a
ubiquitous.
high where we're dealing with insane disorders, where it's like people should be everywhere should be trained to deal with, because for now, for all we know, almost everyone has like a certain disorder, has a certain like issue or mental problem that they're dealing with, where I feel like more training could go on in certain schools, like, or like police stations, and like just general interactions of
Absolutely.
day-to-day life of people need to be more aware.
Corporations as well. Workplace abuse is huge.
Yeah.
We challenge that as well. We have what we call our corporate liaisons, who are trained norm therapists that go into corporations and train corporations on having and creating safe spaces and identifying abusive bosses, circumstances, and ameliorating or making better those environments. We call those brave spaces that we create. And
Yeah.
but we'll talk more. Listen, I'm going to have you back on our next panel. I know you're busy these days, but
Yeah.
stay
I'll see. I'll
stay
see.
available.
I'll try to make something work.
Wonderful. Let me just quickly read this to our audience. If you've enjoyed and got something out of today's live podcast, share this live session with a friend who could benefit from our messages. Please go to to goaro.org. That's GOARO.org. That's our nonprofit. Norm Therapy Inc. actually undergirds ARO, and we keep that arm's length transaction. So to keep our 501c3 status as a public charity. And also go to normtherapy.com, which is the actual company that owns Norm Therapy. And we provide it free of charge to the nonprofit. It's training and it's doctrine and everything else. And to explore our opportunities and seek help for yourself or someone needing our services. If you're interested in applying to participate in our live sessions as a guest, victim, survivor, or otherwise, please email us to contact at normtherapy.com. And we'll get back with you and see if we can schedule you on as a guest. Or if you need our Norm Therapy services, we'll get you to the right Norm therapist. So thank you for joining us. And we can't wait to see you again on Sunday, June 23rd at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I'll be interviewing Grace Gong. She's a graphic designer, and I'd love to have a conversation with her. And also, I want to give our guest, Arin, I want to give her the opportunity to close us out today and tell us something that's very dear to her. Now, we could go on and on with the interview because this is the platform we use, but I'm going to give her a minute to, of course, close us out and let us know what's dear to her and what she got out of this session today.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I really hope you all enjoyed. And something really dear to me, I think that we spoke on was this last topic of making our world more aware. And that's what we do at Norm Therapy. That is spreading our message of being more aware of abuse, because abuse is present everywhere. And so I just, like I said, again, in this session, I just wish everyone had some of the knowledge that we do on these certain situations, and just being more aware. It will make your life a lot easier when you're a bit more aware of situations and a bit more aware of abuses and what this world has to offer. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, everyone.
Always enjoy talking with you, Arin. You're an amazing soul. You're always dealing with a lot of issues, but you deal with them with such grace and bravery. I always tell people courage isn't being gallant.
There's nothing worse than being upset, honestly. Just take life easy, it'll be easy. Take it easy, it'll treat you easily. If you make it hard, it's gonna be hard.
Exactly. Courage is the control of fear and not the absence of fear.
Yeah.
It's the control of fear. So look to respond to circumstances in your life and not just react to them. Yeah. Stop, take a moment, consider what's going on, and then make your decision forward of what you do next. And you'll oftentimes you'll find a better solution as a result. Listen, I enjoyed you again. Thank you, audience, for being there. I wish we had more time. My next show, I'm also starting a new show this upcoming week called The Strong and the Wise. It's on my personal YouTube, and it'll be on the other channels as well. But we'll bring on very strong individuals like Arin, of course, and many others, from ambassadors to business moguls, celebrities. We'll be bringing on to the show, and the strength that they've had to exude throughout their lives will be something that we'll try to share with the public from their visceral connection to that strength and that realistic approach to what they did in order to get to where they are, whether they were marred with abuse or, the people around you saying things like, you'll never make it, leave it alone, go get a job. Those kinds of folks, those naysayers, we're going to talk with strong people around the world from different cultures, different businesses, different backgrounds, different celebrity, and hopefully we'll help share with the public what it is exactly the public needs to do in order to get themselves on a path where they can find their own successes or their own release from their own hells. We'll talk more about that. Listen, Arin, thank you for being here. I can talk all day with you.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to talking to you, and I'll see you around a water cooler at the nonprofit. I really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
To our audience, thank you for attending, and I look forward to having our next conversation, as I mentioned in our notes earlier. Thank you much. Bye all.